The city of Boston carried a rhythm of its own. The Charles River shimmered under the glow of the setting sun, while street musicians played soft jazz near Quincy Market. It was a city of history, of dreams, of stories waiting to be told. Among the thousands who called it home, two souls were about to cross paths in a way that would feel less like chance and more like something written by the universe itself. At 23, Claire Matthews had just graduated from Boston University with a degree in architecture. She loved the way the city blended the old with the new. Cobblestone streets alongside gleaming skyscrapers, ancient churches standing proudly among modern art museums. To Claire, designing buildings wasn't just about lines and steel. It was about telling stories through space, creating something that could last beyond a lifetime. But with graduation behind her, she faced uncertainty. Job offers weren't coming quickly, and the weight of expectation pressed heavily on her. On a quiet spring afternoon, Claire wandered into a small coffee shop tucked into the corner of Beacon Hill. She had brought along her sketchbook, as she often did, filling its pages with quick drawings of arches, windows, and cityscapes. Settling at a table by the window, she ordered a cappuccino and began sketching the row of historic brownstones across the street. "Excuse me," a voice interrupted gently. Claire looked up to see a young man, tall and slightly windswept, holding a laptop bag. His dark hair fell across his forehead, and his hazel eyes held an almost apologetic warmth. "Would you mind if I sit here? Every other table's taken." Claire hesitated, then gestured for him to sit. "Sure, go ahead. Thanks. I'm Ethan Brooks," he said, sliding into the seat. "Claire," she replied with a polite nod, returning to her sketch. Ethan opened his laptop, but after a moment he leaned slightly forward. "That's impressive. You're an artist." Claire smiled faintly. "Architect, actually. Well, almost. Graduated last month. Still figuring out the next step." Ethan chuckled softly. "I know the feeling. I moved here from Denver last year. I'm a software developer by day, but I'm trying to write a novel at night. It's slower than I expected." They both laughed at the truth of chasing uncertain dreams. Something about his honesty disarmed her. In a city full of ambition and noise, here was someone willing to admit he didn't have it all figured out either. Over the next hour, their conversation flowed easily. They spoke of favorite bookstores, their love of late-night walks along the Charles, and how both believed that the universe sometimes nudged people together for a reason. By the time Claire packed up her sketchbook, Ethan surprised himself by asking, "Would you like to walk with me sometime? Maybe near the river?" She considered him for a moment, then nodded. "I'd like that." The days that followed unfolded like a quiet melody. They met often, sometimes at the coffee shop, sometimes in hidden corners of the city. Ethan showed her a rooftop he had discovered with a breathtaking view of Boston Harbor. Claire, in turn, led him to an old library tucked near Copley Square, where stained glass windows painted the floors with color. As they grew closer, Claire found herself inspired in new ways. She began sketching not just buildings, but moments. Ethan laughing with a cup of coffee in hand, the curve of the river at dusk where they often sat together. Ethan, too, found his writing changing. His novel, once stuck in endless revisions, began to flow with surprising clarity. His characters suddenly carried the warmth and strength he saw in Claire. But as their bond deepened, reality intruded. Claire's parents in Chicago urged her to return home, suggesting opportunities at a large architectural firm her uncle worked with. It was security, stability, a clear path forward. Meanwhile, Ethan received an email from a startup company in San Francisco offering him a position that could change his career. One evening, rain tapped softly against the windows of the coffee shop where it all began. Claire stared into her cappuccino, her heart heavy. "If you take the job, you'll be across the country," she whispered. Ethan leaned forward, his expression torn. "And if you go to Chicago, you'll be hundreds of miles away. I don't want to lose what we have, but I also don't want to stop you from following your dreams." The silence between them was thick with unspoken fears. They both knew that sometimes love wasn't about holding on tightly, but about allowing the other to fly. In the weeks that followed, choices pulled them apart. Claire accepted the offer in Chicago, convincing herself it was practical. Ethan boarded a flight to San Francisco, his heart heavy with what-ifs. Distance grew, messages slowed, and though they tried, life swept them into different currents. Yet the universe wasn't finished with them. Months later, Ethan's novel, written in late nights filled with memories of Claire, was accepted by a small publisher. The story revolved around two strangers who met by chance in a city, their connection changing both of their lives. When his first public reading was scheduled in Boston, Ethan returned reluctantly, unsure if he could face the city that reminded him of her. At the bookstore, as he signed copies and greeted readers, his eyes caught on a familiar sketchbook being held in the crowd. Claire stood quietly, her hair slightly damp from the rain outside. Her eyes filled with the same mixture of hope and fear he carried. Their eyes locked, and the noise of the room seemed to fade away. Ethan's breath caught. "Claire," he said softly, almost disbelieving. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "I read your book. Every page felt like us." Emotion surged between them, unspoken but undeniable. For a moment neither moved. Then, with the quiet courage only love could give, Claire whispered, "Maybe the universe isn't done with us after all." That night, they walked again along the Charles River, the city lights reflecting on the water just as before. The air was cool, but their hearts were warm. They didn't have all the answers, and the future still held its uncertainties, but what mattered was this. Two hearts had collided once more, brought together by something greater than chance. Months turned into years. Claire eventually opened her own small design studio in Boston, blending creativity with purpose. Ethan continued writing, his second book blossoming with stories of love, fate, and courage. Together, they built a life filled with late-night coffees, walks through the city they both loved, and endless reminders that some connections cannot be broken. One evening, as they sat on their favorite rooftop, watching the city glow beneath a starlit sky, Claire leaned against Ethan. "Do you think this was fate?" she asked softly. He pressed a kiss to her hair, his voice steady. "I think the universe brought us together for a reason." And as the lights of Boston shimmered below, they knew with certainty that love wasn't about perfect timing or flawless paths. It was about two hearts finding each other, again and again, because some stories are meant to be told, and some loves are meant to last. Because when the universe brings two hearts together, nothing can keep them apart.